we grab ourselves a nice cup of tea and we get our cheat sheets out and then we can start. Martin, I love your slides. But now that he has covered all the key topics, what do we focus on, huh?
You can have a nice coffee, huh?
Good. So let's put things in context a little bit. We've spoken a lot and we heard a lot about TV and how much money is in TV. But also, as Martin showed, there's quite a lot of money in TV ads as well. And actually, a really good question to start with when you analyze an industry, again, coming from a little bit of a consulting background, but is to look where is the money. And the money within our industry, a lot of it is in TV advertising. So there's a lot of money, there's a lot of disruption happening, and at the same time, undoubtedly, there are a lot of interests that are connected to this large chunk of money. So let's recap a little bit. What are the challenges that we see in audience measurement, in targeted advertising? What do we need to change? And now that we're talking about this big chunk of money, what are the things that need to be changed in how we TV ads is run? Kristian, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, as Martin said, it is quite a large market. It's like total advertising market in the world. It's like $500 billion. So I think the people that are involved in the market, like the stakeholders of media agencies, telcos, and then the others, will push for the market. So, but from our perspective, a lot has to be changed. The question is only who will take the lead and change it. For example, in the past, in the TV era, there was much about the aim of having a reach, in a short time period, generating a reach. It was like in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Then it came about the engagement. How do we engage the end customer? And with the rise of the digital, and I think you will talk about a bit about the digital, it was more about the relevance. And when we look about the TV measurement, from our perspective, it's still stuck in the 90s and 80s. It's more about the reach, and all the people that are involved, or many still, when you talk to them, they suddenly pose the wrong questions from our perspective. It's all about the old KPIs, GRPs, and so on. It's not about the relevance, whom do we target and how do we target. And we think we have to learn from digital, the digital transparency, speed, and everything. So TV has to learn from digital.
Okay, ratings need to be changed. Stéphane, what else needs to be changed?
You know, I think you put the right context. You and your brother before in the presentation, actually. There is a simple thing with TV, right? The first question on the phone presentation was, is TV dead? Well, obviously it is not, but it's changing. And when you talk about TV today and you compare it to what it was 10 years ago, then it's fragmented. It's across a lot of technological devices, connection, needed evolution of the traditional broadcasting. So I think the first challenge is a bit rebounding on what you just said, right? We see TV as such is not dying because it's becoming more digital. And that brings along a lot of challenges, which is first to set up, to go that digital way, to make that decision first, and then to realize it in a good way. But then comes along with that, as soon as you go into the new TV, into the new living room, which is all of these connected devices, then you enter the digital world. And by natural consequence of it, you need to have all of your setup evolving also into that direction. And if you look at TV measurements, and then you look at the digital measurement, I mean, it's just like completely different worlds. And I believe now we've reached a point, or we are soon to reach a point, where the market is really, really requiring this digitalness, this, as we heard as well before, like this real-time kind of feeling. Like say, get a reporting on TV, it takes you, I don't know how many weeks after a TV campaign ends, right? In digital, it's available almost right away. So this kind of expectations is now coming from the digitalization, is now in front of, or expected from the TV actors, and this is we are. So yes, we need to evolve. The challenges are technological, but it's also definitely around business models that are being disrupted, that have to change, where everybody has a part to play, but it's yet to be defined. So maybe we will talk about this as well.
Let's talk a little bit about the buyers, the advertisers themselves, because there's a change happening with them. So we spoke about the gross rating points. We spoke about a little bit the need to combine linear and digital TV in terms of measurements. We spoke about a little bit the technology. So what else needs to change in the buyers as well? They need to become more sophisticated, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, there is a bunch of work to be done. We have somehow to educate the market. And just to give you an example, a multinational, let's say, headed somewhere in Germany, and a CMO in Germany overheads the Central Eastern European markets. And he said, I would like to have these KPIs and old school KPIs. And then you suddenly go to some Central and Eastern Europe, and the media agency buys actually the ads based on these, I would say, traditional TV KPIs. So there is no way you could actually sell something new, because the media agencies is selling backwards to the advertisers, and it's actually measured on the KPIs. So it's back and forth. So we have to educate also the advertisers that they can spend their money wisely. Actually, they know that, but for some reason, not everybody is eager to do so.
Yes, and this is exactly because of the interests that are at play with that amount of money that is at hand. So let's talk about the interests of each of the players along the value chain. So you started with our advertisers. They want to spend their money better. Are they prepared to do so? Do they have the capabilities to do so?
Yeah, so what we see is first the topic has popped up over the last year. So there's definitely a greater awareness also at buyers level. We've seen famous advertisers advocating for, well, depending on whom, right? More or less targeting, depending on the philosophy they follow. But they are more aware of what is at stake if they don't adapt to these, well, measurement challenges, you could say. And they definitely don't want to waste their money. Their goal is simple. They want to reach the adequate audience at the adequate frequency. And that's it, across all media. So what they want is simplicity, but they also want, because there's also been a lot of buzz around, say, quality issues or money, not enough transparency around this. So what comes at the advertiser level is definitely the wish to be more transparent, and the wish for all of the supply industry, supply as in, TV supply or video supply, to be consolidated. Yeah, they want it as simple as TV used to be a few years ago. I think that's what I would see on the advertiser side.
And maybe just to add on that, I mean, it really depends also on the market by market. And the power forces in the markets globally are really strong. So the TV broadcasters that are usually nationally providers, free-to-air and so on, usually hold up to 80-90% of the market share in the market. And there is no need for them to change anything because they are the market leaders, right? So why to change the measurement? Why to change anything? On the other side, you have advertisers. They have KPIs. They spend the money. There is it. But we have some nice example, like let's say in UK. So you have like Sky, right? And in the AdSmart solutions. And when you see that the 75%, according to some recent figures, of the advertisers of AdSmart are actually new to TV. So I think maybe one of the good examples would be go for the new TV advertisements, and they will then push the forces back to the old school TV advertisers to change something.
Just thinking when Sky AdSmart started, 2013, 14 already, and since then we have been speaking about the change that needs to happen in the TV advertising domain. Why do you think this hasn't happened? Why do we see dispersed cases of people either via on IPTV or via their own solutions, different solutions? They're getting a little bit smarter. What are the forces at play? And maybe here we can link it to the interests of also the media agencies. Why does this industry still not change when apparently there's space to change? need.
If I may, I will make a step in between, which is the interest of the broadcasters themselves. They are still strong. First of all, they still have a dominating position in each market. They still have the higher budgets, the higher power in the balance. So, to get people in that successful stage to move and change their habits is first of all a challenge in itself. So first, but at the same time, they need to change. They need to go digital, and if you do that, then as far as I can see, you go more and more into cutting maybe intermediaries. Into, for example, you can also, as a broadcaster, by adoption of all this technology to map your audience, just save yourself a lot of work and increase the efficiency on how you manage your inventory. So what Sky did is offering premium audiences, but behind those audiences, if you want, you have less inventory, which means it's much more efficient than it used to be for them. So it's also in their interest to change that. So just my point on the broadcasters, that they can move towards more efficiency. They can move towards even more budgets as they adopt all of the new technologies coming their way, and the wishes from the advertisers. Now, on the media agencies, I think they have invested a lot in the last years in technologies. So you see them being more literate, or at least investing in it, and then also changing their business models to be more of a technical aspect. But there are still things that you hear all the time, right? I mean, our market is always about being efficient, and being efficient means cutting intermediaries. And at one stage, is the technology that much evolved that you can cut some of those in the 3 that we just quoted? It's kind of, I wouldn't say pending, but it's definitely questions currently asked. So what's at stake for them, for the media agencies, and it's not today and it's not tomorrow, it's a few years ahead, but at the end of the day is also their bare existence, I would say.
Absolutely. I can give an example. In the Middle East, the media agencies already compete with us, the consultants, for consulting engagements. As well. So they're definitely trying to evolve, but at the same time they're still holding on to their core turf and to their core expertise. In the Middle East also there's one of the biggest media agencies. They control all of the budgets, and they're one of the key blockers of even a combined TV audience measurement tool. So quite a lot of interests are at play, and I feel that this is one of the areas why we haven't seen this transformation in the industry happening so fast. But is it, we spoke a little bit about the technological change and a little bit about the business model change. Which of the two, what is the first? Is it the technology or is it the business model that needs to change? Who needs to change most?
Well, I think technology is something that's manageable. So today, it's not a question if, it's a question how much and when. So technology, as Marian said before, is in pieces here and there. But the whole value chain today, where you have the broadcaster, media agency, and then the advertiser, you have now the likelihood of the telecoms who have the means of the inventory of selling to the data. They have to be into the place, and some of these are inside, but still they have to break somehow the power forces which are inside. And then coming back to some nice cases like Sky, they are vertically integrated. For them, it's a management case. They decided, they know there is money inside, they can go and they proved it's worthwhile. You have telcos in the region that have proven basically by being vertically integrated that can earn money. And this morning we had also this discussion panel on content and so on. And everybody knows, and me being myself in a telco, as you said, from Telekom Slovenia, IPTV is basically you're not earning money on the IPTV as a whole. So there has to be changed a lot. And I personally bet on a telcos in future to step into the game and breaking up the rules. The question is only when and how.
Stéphane, what do you think?
So technology or business models, I mean, look at the situation today, right? If we talk about TV measurements, if we talk about audience, data business, who is owning it today, right? And where is the threat? As you can see, some digital native platforms have been able to leverage those assets much better in the last years than, for example, broadcasters have been able to. So they are currently trying to push all of this knowledge, business insights that they have gained over the course of the last years in the digital world. We all know that they aim at the TV. So for broadcasters remains the challenge, how they want to go about it. And so is that a technology or a business decision for them to go down that way? To me, in the first place, it's a business decision. Because if they don't do it, they can be sure that the digital platforms will do it. And you see at the same time the threat, because marketers, they are investing a lot on those platforms too. So while FreeWheel, the company that I work with, is concentrate on our pitch is basically, you see the platform business is successful. Let us be your platform, but defending your interests. So leveraging all of your assets and helping you to generate the money instead of letting others leverage that. But that requires first, so the technology behind is not too difficult. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that before. I mean, the technology is not really there's bits and bytes that need to be built, that we are also working on to bridge the digital and the linear at the same time. But the decision first, and that I saw in the digital like 5 years ago, right? Each publisher not being strong enough, when they were entering a data audience-driven business, the programmatic way, they had to change and they had to find collaborations, partnerships. And so what I saw in the digital is like locally in every country, publishers join forces to bundle or share at least their data, to share the media, to sell it all together, to make it simpler for the buy side to buy. And I think to some extent, this is what we are looking at for broadcasters as well, where you will need local broadcasters to go beyond seeing the others as your threat and just cooperating just as they do in the UK, right? So you have ITV, you have Channel 4, and, well, Sky by definition, the three of them leveraging on the AdScanner technology, right? So they enter corporations. And I believe we will see more of that in the future. That's what I would say.
I think we already start to move towards what are the successful business models. We saw what are the interests within each of the value chain steps. But now what do you do out of that? You mentioned, Stéphane, that broadcasters come together and build their ad inventory or put their ad inventory on the single platform. Telcos enter within the space themselves. Let's explore a little bit this space more. What are other successful models for the different players within the value chain?
I mean, we spoke before, in Eastern Europe, you have countries where telcos are providing also measurement as a standard, right? And they're actually monetizing it, because in some countries you have IPTV being 90% of the market share, so why then do you use the old school data? On the other side, I think we spoke this morning about the United Group. I mean, I think this is a very perfect idea of how they do that, and they monetize the data as well. So, but I'm still waiting for the big ones to move inside into the game. Just to give you two examples, if I may, why the broadcasters are so difficult to move inside it. I wasn't aware before moving into this industry, but if there is an ad block in many countries up to now, the ad block measurement is an average. So wherever you are in the ad block, you receive the very same the very same reach. But nowadays, when everything is digital, when you know how many click-through rates, how many customers you have reached, this is impossible, right? And for me as an advertiser, it would be really astonishing to use the data. And still the telcos, I think, we are speaking to many telcos, they are preparing it, they're sitting on data, but again, then the broadcasters come into the game and they say, well, but this is our data, it's not your data, it's our data. So a lot has to be filled. I think the vertical integrated players, Sky, United Group, and all the other telcos, will be at the forefront. And I mean, in the US, there you have perfect examples of that. In the US, you have the different dimensions, because this morning we spoke about content, and in Europe, mainly, you pay for the content on the telcos, right? Still in Germany and in the US, actually, some of the content providers pay to the telcos, and then you have some leverage on that. So a lot has to be changed.
And Stéphane.
Yeah, sorry, and those changes are around data. It's the common currency among all of us in the ecosystem. So what, like the way we position ourselves is to be like the enabler between the telcos and the broadcasters to leverage those data assets, to have market standards based on data. In Germany, you see now 2 data initiatives that are in their beginnings, but very interesting because they involve brands, they involve telco partners, they involve retailers. So to see how, and I guess it's only a matter of time until these 2 initiatives become one, and when you have this data pool already to base everything else on, then that could be very interesting. So I think success cases are yet to come, but you can also see the interest of, if you see like in Sweden right now, right, what I talked to you about lunch, that you see the telco providers being more and more interested also in engaging with broadcasters, being it
buying them.
Well, that way, or just engaging at a technical level. I mean, you will see more and more of this data articulation, data operation. We also have, so, FreeWheel is a Comcast company, and we also have initiatives to help the industry, which is, but this will only happen when, the TV, the main difference to me between TV and digital is that digital is like risk conscious and risk taking. But in TV, there are risk conscious, but also risk averse. And the only way to move everyone towards the data audience path broadcasting side is if you take away the risk. So if you give confidence instead. And so what we need is a safe, operational, scalable model for all of these players to engage with one another, to share their data assets. And then you need some further technologies that will, so this is the one, right? This is like the supply. Then you need the transaction as well. We saw before the programmatic. Programmatic is gaining traction everywhere. So what we need is also, the conversions of those transactions, where it doesn't matter at the end of the day where the money is coming from, as long as each in the ecosystem will get the most value for what is being traded. And last but not least, and this is probably maybe the answer is already there, but not yet communicated. But I think the biggest step will be the alignment between the digital and the linear, and for that the issue is more the currency. So there still needs to be a new, fresh look, and I believe as well there may be, if I may have a wish, maybe some more digitalization in that regard. Yeah.
We spoke about the platform. We spoke a little bit about broadcasters putting their advertising property together. Let's talk about the end game. So ultimately, where does this lead to? Having other types of media also on this platform, print, and providing also cross-media and targeted advertising, such as Admira in Switzerland? Or what would the end game look like?
Well, to me, everything has become digital. So the end game is definitely digital. And by way of digital, you will have all of it. Like, say, TV is now becoming more digital, yeah? And it will be, I mean, the two, at least it's our aim as a company to make the two really one. So from an inventory point of view, from everything. So if you start with the statement that everything is going to be digital, then you'll be looking also at digital out of home. You'll be looking at audio topics that we are already asked to deal with on the programmatic side of things. Those will follow. Yes, the print. I mean, it's probably. There is one part that won't be able to have it across one platform, but the digital parts, and that will be the greater in the future, then I guess we are talking about cross-media platforms, same as they are already cross-device, so why not cross-media,
Mm-hmm. So was your question, is Google going to rule the world? So I think if you speak about Google, I mean, they're already trying to push the TV measurement and everything. Mm-hmm. They're trying to linear channels and so on. I think the likelihood that the US media companies taking the lead, yes, I think it's going to happen. Just recently I did some study on that. And if you take just on the stock market and you take the US media companies versus global ad agencies and S&P 500, so in the last 2 years you see that US companies have twice as much index as the other S&P 500, so clearly something is happening. Back here in Europe, I doubt it will work. You have regulatory, you have too many markets, too many languages, and so on. It's yet to be seen what will happen.
Mm-hmm. But that point about the Googles and the Facebooks of the world and them getting a larger chunk of advertising money, I think that's a key theme in all of the countries that I've worked with as well. And in Saudi Arabia, for example, now they're building or they're thinking about a cross-media advertising platform in order to protect the local interests, in order that the money doesn't go to California straight away, but is retained within the market itself. And this is also the rationale of Admira as well in Switzerland. So a lot of the local players are realizing that if they put their forces together, they would be able to retain a larger chunk of money within their local markets. Have you seen this?
Honestly, not. I mean, we are from one market from Germany to Bulgaria and still facing issues between telcos and broadcasters. They do not want to talk to each other, but still they know that there is $100 billion market on targeted advertising. So let's see if they are going to be faster than Facebook and YouTube and Google. Because example on Facebook is they have their own content, right? And just lately they changed a bit in order to be able to address FMCG and retail market. They said, okay, we have a non-linear content, but non-linear content will be available, I'd say, from Saturday 9 p.m. just to be able to generate the reach in a short time of period. So they are moving very, very fast. I don't see the broadcasters, the old school broadcasters, being able to move. And maybe it's going to be too late for them.
So I'm maybe a bit more optimistic. No, but we've seen, so the first thing is when I moved from the pure digital to the digital TV, I saw first a lot more, I wouldn't say awareness, but at least reluctancy to give up their business, yeah, and that's already a good start because.
Just let's see, how many broadcasters do we have in the room? Do we have broadcasters here? Anyone from the broadcasters?
I got lucky.
We can say anything.
But I mean, I saw, that it's much more they are much more protective, and they should be, of their assets, which is a fight that maybe got lost at one stage on the digital part. Yeah, so. First, it starts with the reluctancy to give away your business. And then needs to come the wish to capitalize on your assets. I mean, there is no better medium today than TV. We saw that in the presentation before, right? So it all falls and stays with the ability to cooperate. We have now one example at hand in the UK, where TF1, Channel 4, Mediaset, ProSieben have joined forces in a common exchange. So the idea is at the European scale to build up, it's called EBX, and it's already a first cooperation around common approach to the market, to be one, to consolidate all of these companies' assets. I believe this is one of maybe well, first, I believe it will evolve itself and gather more people around. And two, I think it's one blueprint for future corporations. The other story is that I saw is that we are talking, I hear already the first country scale. So the scale is the country marketplace, where it's very interesting for us. I am working with a couple of broadcasters in a given country, and then they want to have a common offering to the market, but then so not at European level, but then locally in the market. That is very interesting to me. So we'll try to federate and help that. And the last one is, in France, our company is lucky enough to be mature in terms of, same in the US, but here more a bit closer. We work already with all the broadcasters in the region. We have one telco also on board using our technology, our ad delivering technology, ad server, SSP. So all of them use it. It is a natural consequence for us to help build the ecosystem with a few more telcos, right? I mean, where if you have this level of maturity in the market, where does it go further? And we see the potential in helping them build a new ecosystem, which allows each of them in the participating into the ecosystem to get value for what they bring to the table. I'd say data, audience data from the telcos, and the media part coming from the broadcasters, to make it simple.
How many telcos do we have in the room? Do we have telcos? Yeah? Okay, a few more. Let's focus on what are their interests. So what can they do? We spoke about them participating in such platforms. We spoke about further cooperations or potential buyout of broadcasters, because for them it's a natural evolution. This is the closest adjacent business to them compared to anything else. And they've all been looking into let's go near core, right? And this is the nearest core than anything else. What else can they do within this domain? What have you seen successful?
I mean, the big buzzword in telcos is GDPR. I mean, Europe, it's with the GDPR role, the telcos have to be really cautious about how they use the data from the end customer. And telcos up to now are using data for the recommendations engine and so on. Some of those are using for the pre-roll, some of those using in a video on demand services. And we personally see telcos moving into that area. And being part of this game. Again, previously so many of the telcos then focus on how rather than if and when to deliver and to use some type of services that we are speaking right now today. We see telcos that, and the conclusion of I think your panel before was that the telcos are not able to be a broadcaster or not managing the media good because they are more a delivery, they understand the network and so on. So they have to find a way how to integrate it either by M&As, and we see that clearly happening. I mean, in Eastern and Western Europe, you see Admera as well with the joint ventures, but also in other parts, they are buying broadcasters, buying media agencies, trying to bring the competencies and skill under one umbrella. So I think we will see two different approaches. One is grow by M&A and be enabled there, and the other one is partnering up.
Let's be a little bit more pragmatic. What are the first? Because apparently these are big steps that people need to take, and they're difficult steps because they need to change technologies, skills. They need to enter in a new market. Pragmatically, what is the first thing that they can do, or closest thing that they can do?
From my perspective, again, we have talked to several telcos, and they have to see where they are standing in the market. Usually, they hold 10 to 20% of the ad spending in the market, so they have a quite large leverage in terms of their ad spending in the market. And then see what type of data they have, what they can reuse, and then to partner up. Eventually they have to talk to the broadcasters, because nowadays the contracts they have to broadcasters, usually they are not allowed even to place any ad within the broadcasters. So they have to partner up with the broadcaster.
Okay, partnerships.
Yeah, I mean, I see that too. I think everybody has to play to their own strength, and for the telcos, I think there is no other player on the market that has that level of data on the users, not only on the users but also from an advertiser perspective as well, to refine all of the data of the audience data specified to a product. So I think yes, the data is at the core. I see also that they could help building audience standards on a given market, because what you have today is, even if everybody was to on the publisher side, right? Even if everybody would start measuring their own data, or they do already, for a lot of them, it would be like each would be a single definition of a specific target group. So like a male 35, 39 is calculated differently at different broadcasters, right? While the market needs a market standard for this male 25, 29, and I believe that this is something the telcos could help defining, like the market standards. Once you have those standards, usually it makes it easier for everybody, because at the end of the day, on the buyer side, they just want that. They just want the audience. Same goes for, like frequency capping we had before. We heard that, right? It's also just a data point. Yeah, it's also just a data point that you have to track, and that you have to track, measure, and then control, like switch it on, switch it off. But I mean, there is some progress to be made, and that lays first with everybody playing to their strength. For the broadcasters, I believe it's also I mean, in the quality of the content, that's first, but it's also as a group to advocate for the strength of TV towards the buyers. I mean, you cannot compare the KPIs in terms of completed views, for example, right? Viewability and all of this, which is it's an increasing topic. When do I pay? If it's viewed or not, the broadcasters have like 95+ viewability. So, they should play those arguments against the other on the market. I think that's an easy thing to do. It's just advocacy. Sell the media even better than they did until now by adopting some more of the digital language. Yeah? Fraud doesn't exist on TV. Yeah?
Yeah.
If I may add, I mean, the telcos and the broadcasters, one portion is the revenue side. Everyone wants to increase the KPIs revenue. But also the portion everybody should focus on is how we can increase the customer experience. And to give you an example, when an ad block starts, 50% of viewers change within 5 seconds and do not come back. So this data is available but not reused. So they have to work together to reuse the data and make our lives better. Why should we remain on the channel? Please bring us better TV ads. Please bring us better content, right? And then everybody will earn.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So on this, it's always, the user experience versus the ad effectiveness on the other side. And then, when you talk about what can you do in the future as well, I mean, it's maybe too much of a topic right now, but it's also how flexible can broadcasters be once they have launched a service, a digital service? How flexible can they be in their business models to have a better understanding, to have this kind of tailoring of content that we heard this morning about as well, between AVOD and SVOD? So there's a lot to begin there as well. But it all starts with the data, measuring, analyzing, data insights that you operate yourself. Same for the user experience, indeed. Yeah.
Okay, final question. Who out of the players that we spoke about has the capacity, interest, capabilities to move the industry? Who, when they move, the rest will follow? Or do everybody need to move? Or is it one type of players that once they move, the others will follow? How would change happen?
I think the vertically integrated players will show and be the first movers, but the telco players, the global telco players, I would bet on them. They are not the first movers, but once they move into the game, they will be the winners.
Mm-hmm. Super.
Yeah, and yes, but I would say as well, like we see already in the US, once it is understood by the players what is at stake, then they start moving into coalitions. And so yes, the telcos on one side, but broadcasters on the others as well. And if you have the 3-4 biggest programmers joining forces to launch a common initiative on data sharing, on audience profiling, on approach to the market, then I believe it is not too far away, right? The first step, and it's Europe, okay, we are fragmented and all of this, but the US is still kind of a model there, and they are maybe also a bit more advanced in the way that they look at it from a market point of view, where it's clearly understood that the enemy is not the other broadcaster, but all of the platforms that try to leverage my assets. And we've seen that in the course of the last 6 months. Look at the local press. We are also part of that. And the part that we can play is by advocating all the time, or by letting our customers, broadcasters primarily, to advocate all of the medium TV, all of this positive and proactive actions that are currently happening. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Super. So there's a lot of interest at play, a lot of money in hand, and a big transformation that is happening, and we need to stop now.
Thank you. Thank
Any
you very
questions?
much. Yes, Irena.
Irina Baterino, Telecom Slovenia. What I'm missing in this picture is it's clear that the broadcasters are protecting their business model. So they have the biggest portion of the money involved in the TV advertising. On the other side, we can clearly see the interest of telcos. So it's the technology that enables everything. It's the data that we have. So the question is, what will we do and introduce which business model? But what I'm missing in this picture is the advertisers. So they are the ones that are putting the money into it. And because we all know that today, as Kristian, as you mentioned, each user in the next 5 seconds, the TV ad comes in, goes off the channel, and never comes back. So the broadcaster doesn't care because he already collected the money. And the advertiser paid the money in average. So yes. Average target group, prime time, non-prime time, whatever. So why aren't the advertisers putting more pressures on broadcaster? Because they do know what's the target on digital and what do they get for their money on digital and what's the conversion rate. So why don't they get into the picture? I was always wondering for the past 2 years, where are they?
So, yeah, I can speak about several countries, but in common they have everything that broadcasters and media agencies normally are under the same hood, right? And I am not going to mess up your business, you're not going to mess my business. It's a closed, and there is not always a transparent. But we see clearly moving. Let's say in Germany, there's a lot of insourcing happening. So the advertisers are gaining much more power. So media agencies are not more doing the strategy, are not more doing the media strategy in terms of buying. So I'm doing insourcing by myself as advertisers, going to the media agency saying, please buy this, and myself, and I will measure it myself. This is going to happen. And this, in Germany, we see it now happening. So advertisers are gaining more power. Once it happens, then...
Because it's their money. I mean, they're putting in the money.
I think it has a lot to do with transparency. But as the market,
It's connected with the
and as the market is bringing a lot more transparency now via the technological bits and bytes, I think the advertiser and the whole discussion will gain more weight as it has been the case so far.
One point from myself as well. They need to become much more sophisticated buyers. So they need to upskill a lot. They need to know exactly who they want to target. We were speaking before the panel. Now the 80% of the targeting, if we speak about targeted advertising, is male and age, so gender and age. And we are using only these components now. And marketers use mainly these two components. Well, you have a plethora of other standards that you can use to target a little bit better, much better, not a little bit better. But this requires higher sophistication from the advertising teams within the particular entities.
Hello. Thank you for the panel. Just to add on on your response, in addition to sophistication and in-house sophistication about more hyper-targeting buying, isn't it also in terms of purchasing power for the telcos or whoever publisher? They need to have the proper technology in place. They need to have a good ad server or an SSP connected to a DSP like FreeWheel and like Wide Orbit and AppNexus, and those platforms are expensive.
If I just may add on that, I think WPP in Germany holds 70 or 80% of the marketing power in Germany. So they have a strong marketing power there.
That's true for those markets,
Yeah.
but for CEA, which
Yeah.
are, as you said, very fragmented markets,
Yes.
in order you can hire the best marketer, but unless they have the tools in place to go and build the audience segments for which you need to buy, you need to pay a DSP, have a, just kind of trying to understand, is really just like a people thing, or it's also having the right technology in place which requires the money to pay?
Well, I mean, it's not specifically for the advertisers, right? But as the market becomes much more technological, as the business models are driven by technology, yes, it makes sense for all the players in the market to have this technology. Now, the barrier to go for this or that technology, as I understood your question, right, is maybe too expensive or not. I mean, this is the basics of negotiation, right? I mean, you close a deal when both sides agree on the deal to be closed. So usually, what I see, at least from an ad serving SSP point of view, the mathematics are to a majority based on rev share, right? So there's a shared interest in reaching good results. So I believe that shouldn't be a barrier to adopting this kind of technology. Now, on the other side, the DSP, while I don't know the exact mathematics behind the business models, but as I see more and more advertisers, and not always the biggest, adapt DSP, so in-house all the buying process, I believe it's suitable for a market to develop. But technology is one. You also need the knowledge to operation it and the people to drive all of the insights that you gain of this transparency or knowledge. So it's not only the piece of technology as well that may be blocking, but also the right people. Data scientists are really now very looked for.
Perfect. Thank you very much.